In this tutorial I'm going to show you how to do the leaping stripe stitch. Looks quite complicated, actually once you get going with it it's really easy. It's a 2-row repeat, but it's only the starts and the ends of the row that are really different. The rest of it is very similar, and it does look very similar on the back to the front. Gorgeous stitch, would be a great one for blankets because there are very few holes in there, especially for a baby blanket. I could see that working up really nicely. So let's have a look at the tutorial. So for this tutorial I'm going to use 2 colours. You can use as many colours as you want, or you could just have 1 colour. I quite like the effect you get with the 2 colours. So I've chosen my favourite colour combination of pink and grey. These are DK yarns. I have a 4.5mm hook just because I want a little bit of give in it. So choose a corresponding hook to the size of yarn that you have chosen. I have scissors to cut off my end and darning needle to sew in my end, and a stitch marker just in case I need one. So we're going to start by making a foundation chain. I'm going to start with a slip knot. You can do that in whichever way you prefer. And our foundation chain needs to be made in multiples of 4 plus an extra 2 at the end for turning chains. So yarn over and pull through the loop on your hook. That's 1 chain. Yarn over, pull through 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So pause the video now whilst you make your foundation chain in multiples of 4, and I shall see you at the end. So I've finished my foundation chain. I'm just doing a sample of 20 chains here, and now I'm going to do my extra 2. That's 1 and 2, and I'm ready to start row 1. Now row 1 begins in the 4th chain from the hook, so we never count the one on the hook. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and in there I'm going in with a treble. That's UK terminology. In US that would be a double. So yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull through, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. I'm going to do a treble in the next chain now. So yarn over, insert into the next chain, yarn over, pull through, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2. So it looks now like we have 3 trebles at the start of our row. We're then going to skip 2 chains, 1, 2, and to travel over those skip chains we're going to chain 2. So chain 1, chain 2, these are our skipped 2, and in the next stitch we're going to do a treble, and in the next stitch we're going to do a treble. And we chain 2, 1, 2, and we skip 2, 1, 2, and we do our 2 trebles again. So it's treble, treble, chain 2, skip 2. So continue all the way down your row till you get to your last chain, and I shall show you what to do at the end of the row. So pause the video now. So I've just come to the end of my first row. I have 1 chain left, and in that chain I'm going to do another treble. Remember that's UK terms, that'd be a double in US. So you start and end the row with 3 trebles, this turning chain counting as the first treble. Now we're going to continue in the same colour. So if you're wanting to change colours, you change colours every 2 rows. So I'm going to chain 1 and turn my work. The chain 1 doesn't count, therefore we're going to work into that very first stitch there, and we're going in there with a double crochet. We're going to chain 2, 1, 2. We're going to skip the 2 trebles that are here, so skip the next 2 stitches, and we're going to work our 2 trebles in the next space. We're not going to work into the space, we're actually going to work into the chains from the previous row. So we're going to yarn over, insert into the first skip chain from the previous row, go behind the 2 chains you've made and bring that stitch up. So we don't want to pull the bottom up too much, but equally we don't want floppy stitches either. So that's 1, and this will sort of equal itself out as you move through the piece. And then go into the next chain with the treble, pull that stitch up, and then complete your treble. Chain 2, 1, 2. That chain 2 is to travel over those 2 trebles from the previous row, and then we're going to do exactly the same. We're going to put a treble in each of the chains from the foundation chain. So we yarn over, insert into the first skip chain, yarn over and pull through, pulling that stitch up so it's not too tight, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, and then the next one we do exactly the same. So continue all the way down the row, so you're chaining 2, skipping the trebles and then putting your trebles into the foundation chain, and join me just before the end of the row and I shall show you what to do at the end. So I've come to the end of my row. I've done my last 2 trebles into the 2 remaining chains. I'm going to chain 2, 1, 2, skip over these 2 trebles here, and in the top of that 3 chain from the very start of our work, we're going to put 1 double crochet. Remember that UK terms, that would be a single crochet in US. And that's the end of the first part of the pattern. Now if you want to change colour, this is where you can change your colours. So to change colour, I'm just going to undo that double crochet from the previous row, and I'm going to redo it. So I'm going to insert, yarn over, pull through, and then instead of yarning over and pulling through to finish off, I'm going to pick up my new yarn, hook it round, and then pull it through to finish off that stitch. Now you have a choice here. You can either tie off your ends and weave them in later, or you can carry them up the side of the yarn. It's entirely up to you how you want to do that. If you have more than 2 or 3 colours, it might end up getting a little bit bulky on the side because you're carrying up 3 or 4 different threads. So I'll leave it up to you to decide, obviously, but just something to think about when you're coming to do the next change of colour if you're doing more than 2 or 3 colours. Okay, then for row 3 then we're going to chain 1, turn our work. The chain 1 does not count, therefore we're going to work into that very first stitch, and we go in there with a double crochet. Now we immediately come to our 2 chain space from the previous row. So instead of, as before we worked into the chain, we're going to work into the top of the treble stitches here. So we don't need to chain 2 because we're already at it. So yarn over, insert into the first part of the stitch. Now if you look closely, you'll see that belongs to that stitch and that belongs to that stitch. So we're going into the very first one, yarn over, pull through, make sure it's not too tight, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Then we do again in the next treble, and then we chain 2. So it's very similar to the previous row, it's just the way we start and end the rows that is slightly different. We've chained 2, which means we can travel over these 2 trebles, and then we're going to work in the next 2 trebles. So yarn over, working into the first treble with a treble, and then working into the second treble. Chain 2, skip these 2 trebles, and we're going to work into the top of the next 2 trebles from 2 rows below. That's 1, and that's 2, chain 2, and we're going to work all the way down the row in exactly the same way until you come to your last 2 stitches, and I will see you at the end of the row. So pause the video now. So I've just worked my last 2 trebles in the last 2 chain space. I've got 1 stitch left now, and in there I'm going to do a double crochet. Remember, UK terms, us a single in US. So finish my double crochet, and that is row 3 complete. Chain 1, turn our work. Chain 1 doesn't count, therefore we're going to work into that very first stitch. We go in with a double crochet, and then on this row we're skipping over the 2 trebles, so we need to travel over. So we're going to put 2 chains in, and then we're going to do our trebles into the next 2 chain space. Chain 2, skip the 2 trebles, work trebles into the next 2 chain space, chain 2, then work into the next 2 chain space, and continue that all the way down the row until you get near the end, and I shall show you what to do at the end. So pause the video now. So I've come to the end of this row. I've got 3 left. 3 stitches left. I'm going to chain 2. That travels me over the 2 trebles, and then in the very last stitch going to finish with my double crochet. So insert yarn over, pull through, and if you're changing colour you want to drop your working yarn, pick up the new yarn and finish off that stitch in the new yarn. And just tighten that up a little bit. So then we go back to row 3 for the repeat. So we chain 1 and we turn. Chain 1 doesn't count, therefore we're going to work into that first stitch with a double crochet. We're immediately at our chain space, so we don't need to chain 2 to start. We go straight in with our trebles into the next 2 trebles from 2 rows below. Chain 2, skip 2, and then work our 2 trebles, making sure you're not pulling them too tight, otherwise it will distort the work. Chain 2, skip 2, and we just repeat rows 3 and 4 all the way till we get the work to the length that we want. So I'm going to work up a few more rows for you to see how it looks, and I shall see you in a moment. So I've just worked up a few more rows for you to see how it looks, and now I've sort of come to the end of my piece, and I don't really want to have these 2 chain spaces as part of my work. I'd like it to be solid like it is along the bottom. So I'm using the same colour as I started with to do my finishing off. So I've done row 1 of the colour, and now I'm going to chain 1, turn my work. I'm not going to, this chain 1 will count, so I'm not going to work into that very first stitch. I'm going to work into the top of the next stitch. So instead of chaining 2, I'm going to do a double crochet in the top of each of those trebles. Then I'm going to do my 2 trebles into the 2 trebles from the row below. Oops. So that's 1 and 2. Then I'm going to work 2 double crochets into the next 2 trebles, and then do my 2 trebles in the row below, or 2 rows below, sorry. And you'll see that that just finishes off the work we have there, the same as it is at the bottom. So wherever you have solid trebles, you're going to do a double crochet into the top of each of those. And wherever you have your 2 chain space, you're going to fill it in as we've done before with your trebles from 2 rows below. So double crochet into the top of the trebles, I had a pen sitting on my yarn then, and then treble into the ones 2 rows below, and then when you get to the end you've got 3 stitches at the end, and you just do your 3 trebles just to finish off the piece. And there you have your worked up stitch, so you can pull your yarn, cut off the end, and you're good to go. So just having a little closer look, you can see how beautiful that is in the 2 colours, and I'm sure if you have lots of different colours it will look just as beautiful. If we turn it over, because it's a 2 row repeat using the colours, it is slightly different, but only to those who would know. So that's how to do the leaping stripe stitch. If you've enjoyed this tutorial, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps YouTube to show it to other crocheters and to help our channel to grow. If you enjoyed seeing my Yeehaw Cowboy Girl stitch marker today, this is one of my kawaii stitch markers, which I will link somewhere around the screen, and it'll also be linked in the description below. You could also buy it in my Etsy shop, which I will link in the description below too. I shall pop 2 more videos on the side of the screen to help you on your crochet journey, and I shall see you over there. Thank you so much for joining me on this one, and happy hooking!